Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Brian O'Neill.
And welcome to our Friday edition with Dr. Robert A. Heineman, Political Science Professor Emeritus. Dr. Bob, welcome.
Well, thank you so much for welcoming me, Brian, this 4th of July weekend. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, Dr. Bob, let's start out with the Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell child trafficking ring. Here's what I got on that. The girls as young as 14. It begins in 1994. This stuff is said to have happened in Palm Beach, Florida, Manhattan, New York, London, England, and Santa Fe, New Mexico. Ghislaine Maxwell, the madam they call her in the Epstein ring, facing numerous charges, including enticement, conspiracy, transporting minors, and perjury. What do you make of it?
Well, I think they have a pretty tough case against her, and it appears that she's been traveling around rather frequently, I would think, maybe to avoid this. But they've got her now, and she's not going to be traveling much, I think, in the near future. I think the question here is, as you know, she's bragged in the past that they don't dare do anything to her because she is aware of some very important people who've been involved. And I think they probably are. I think there's some people right now really pretty nervous. So she's got some choices here, one of which is to lawyer up, which I'm sure she'll do. But typically in these situations, as we said, when Epstein ended up in jail, I think we made the point that he was not going to get out of that situation alive, which he did not. On the other hand, in these situations, if the defendant or the prisoner begins to talk and cooperates with the authorities, then any kind of threats against her life or security, I think, fall flat, because once she's given most of the information she has, there's no reason really to try to prevent her from that point on. So if she's smart, and I think she's reasonably smart, but I'm not sure about that, she'll begin cooperating, and I think cooperating thoroughly with the authorities. I think she's, given the charges against her, you would think she's going to do some jail time. But given the people who are involved, there's some real bombshells, I would think, involved here. And so this could begin to provide evening news coverage that distracts from all the other things that are going on. This is really pretty interesting.
Dr. Heineman, I wanted to ask you this. I'm not speculating that. Well, let me ask the question and get your response. U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman of the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York was pushed out a week ago. Jeffrey Berman was very anti-Trump and was going after Trump every way he could. Do you think that Barr or Trump kind of wanted Jeffrey Berman out of the way because of this case in any way?
I don't know. I don't know that your assumptions are correct there.
Yeah, I just wondered because, the timing of it. Just wondering.
Yeah, no, I wondered about the timing too. But because this investigation has to have been going on for quite a long period of time. The way I read this, what is it, Ghislaine
Maxwell.
They've been following her, and I expect they've probably been tapping her emails and her phones and such. So they had a pretty good idea where she was and what she was doing, and they've been doing that for a long time, because I think they're really very unhappy with what happened to Epstein, and they want her, and they I think feel, and I think there's quite a bit of evidence to support their feeling that she's involved in a really pretty horrendous sex ring, and there's a lot of high flyers tied into it. So this is all pretty sensitive stuff, and you would expect Berman, I think he's from the Southern District. This
Yes.
comes out of the Southern District. Okay.
Yes.
Would be aware of all this. No, I think there may be some other issues involved there in terms of he was looking at some of the supporters of Trump and such. You just don't know on these things like that.
Right. And I'm not trying to accuse Berman of anything or Trump of anything. I just think the timing is kind of interesting. We're talking with Dr. Bob, as we always do on a Friday. The jobs report came out yesterday. Unemployment now down to 11.1%. President Donald Trump says the economy is roaring back. His opponent, Democrat Joe Biden, says Trump is deadly wrong and there is no victory. Your thoughts?
No, I think Trump's right. I think that's amazing to have 11.1% unemployment, given the horrendous conditions that the economy has been put through here in the last 2 or 3 months. In fact, under Reagan, I think the unemployment rate went up to 10% or so. So it's not that far above what the Reagan administration had at one point. And
The who administration there, Dr. Bob?
the Reagan administration.
Okay.
Yes. So that the approach that the Trump people are taking seems to be working, and you get the feeling that the economy is continuing to move, and by election time, the unemployment rate could be down to 6 or 7% easily, given this momentum. And I think that's something that worries the Democrats a lot, because, as you know, Trump previous this virus had the unemployment rate down to below 4%, which is almost unheard of. The idea that they're going to get it down that low this time before the election, I think, would be pushing it almost impossible. But they certainly could get it down quite a ways. And again, whether you like Trump or not, the fact is he produces in the area of economic growth and economic activity. And again, when you're talking about minorities, the unemployment rate for black folks was the lowest it's been since they started recording it, and Hispanics was way down too. So, as Kennedy used to say, rising tide raises all boats, and I guess everybody was benefiting. But the point is, at this point, those are really incredible figures, given all the trauma that the country's gone through.
Dr. Bob, earlier in the week, the New York Times put out a story saying that the president ignored messages that came in a briefing from intelligence that the Russians wanted to put a bounty on U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan and have the Afghanistan soldiers killing U.S. soldiers for money. You know, listening to Congressman Tom Reed in the press conference earlier in the week, I don't think Congressman Tom Reed believes it. What do you think?
Well, I'm not certain that the New York Times directly accused Trump of ignoring that. What the New York Times did basically was quote a number of intelligence people who said they had sent this information on to the staff people in the White House. And it's possible that got caught in a glitch or got mislaid, etc., or it's possible that, in fact, they did inform Trump. But I think the bigger picture here is that what was happening totally was not unexpected. I don't know if you watched Charlie Wilson's War, the movie from...
No, I haven't seen that.
Well, it's worth watching. It's based on fact, and it's really quite entertaining. And, of course, this is about a congressman in Texas who maneuvered the United States into funding surface-to-air missiles against the Russians in Afghanistan. So when the Russians were in Afghanistan, we were clearly funneling funds and material to the Afghani rebels. So the idea that somehow the Russians would turn around and try to undercut our presence in Afghanistan, put it mildly, it would not be unexpected. And the idea that we don't provide bounties on people on the other side of the line throughout the world, I mean, that's, come on. Why they're getting all worked up about this, again, it's just another attempt to try to undercut Trump. And again, the idea that this is going on is frankly not that unusual at all in terms of what the Russians are doing, and who knows what the Chinese may be doing in situations like this as well. But the Russians obviously pretty unhappy about the way we treated them when they were in Afghanistan.
Right.
They certainly got to be pretty unhappy with us in there. And of course, it's not only American troops, apparently. It's NATO troops generally that they were. It's a war, and we're in there, and people are trying to take advantage of us. But on the other hand, if you look at how many people are left in Afghanistan, Trump is moving them out pretty rapidly, and so the whole thing could become moot in that respect. But it's just another example of when you start to shake the tree, drain the swamp there in the Beltway, you're going to get all kinds of blowback from people who are threatened in one way or another.
Dr. Bob, the feds are going around arresting Antifa members who show up in videos and have been spotted on videos rioting and or tearing down statues in the bigger cities. The FBI arrested recently an Antifa member for being the leader of the movement to tear down the Andrew Jackson statue. And when I say the leader of the movement, the ringleader in pulling the statue down itself. This guy, it's kind of interesting. He's been named on conservative websites before because he's been spotted and caught on video pushing around and bullying around Trump supporters in pretty mean ways. Your thoughts on the federal activity here, the way that Trump's using the feds?
Well, he has to do something in that respect. Now, whether these people are Antifa members or not and what Antifa is, I don't know. Obviously, I would guess the FBI and other federal authorities have some information on these people, and especially particular individuals. But Trump has to show that there's a certain amount of law and order in this country, and to put an end to this tearing down statues at will. Again, we've said, if the local legislature votes to remove a statue or whatever, that's up to them. But the idea that you let these various identity groups of one sort or another just sort of take over the streets and start tearing down anything that they come across, I mean, that's a total disregard of law and order, and Trump doesn't and can't allow himself to be seen as allowing this to happen. So some of these people are, well, obviously they're arresting them, and some of them will probably do some jail time for destruction of property and all kinds of other things. But on the other side, of course, you've got groups raising money on the hashtag websites and such to provide bail for these guys. So there they are out there doing everything they can to undercut any attempt to provide some kind of stability in the cities and security, actually, for people.
And they'll get that in New York City with the big budget cuts to the New York City Police Department, Dr. Bob?
Well, that's another side of it, of course, is that, attempts to undercut the police and really weaken them. Those are going to come back to bite the general public pretty badly, I think. And, people have to begin to think, why are we electing these people to office? We're electing them to provide some sort of stability in the government, and to let them just roll over and let these mobs sort of dictate what they can do. I mean, is completely contrary, I think, to what most people expect. So you see these polls, and they show, of course, Trump not doing particularly well, not at the moment, but those can change really pretty quickly and pretty rapidly. I think the thing that I find disappointing is that now you're beginning to get some of these regular conservative groups, the Heritage Foundation, the Cato Institution, American Enterprise Institute, and other conservative traditional groups are beginning to undercut Trump as well. And I think that's really very sad because, of course, what they are also part of this Inside the Beltway network. And so Trump, who is tearing up a lot of these networks and threatening them, is in fact, threatening people like Wills and some of these other folks who see themselves as sort of conservative spokespeople, Crystal and others. What Trump is doing is tearing apart some of the foundations that they've been milking and exploiting for years as well. So they talk a very good game, but they really don't. They do very little. And what's happened is, we could say Trump doesn't talk a particularly good game, but in fact he does rescind regulations, cut taxes, aim at cutting down immigration, and a huge range of things that he's done and he's certainly working on. So the fact is, I think that Trump's effort is going to find these sort of people who consider themselves traditional conservative spokespeople are not playing it, I think, fairly in this situation.
Dr. Bob, there's a rumor being floated around by a conservative talk show host whose name is Hugh Hewitt that he hears from some of the top conservatives that Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito might retire so he can get out of Washington, D.C. What do you make of rumors like that?
Well, there certainly are rumors out there. I think the other side of it you got to look at is that, of course, everybody's watching Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I think Breyer is still on the court there too, and he's way up there in age as well. And so they got two liberal judges there that, Ginsburg in particular, are right on the edge of really, she shouldn't be on the court anymore. I mean, she's clearly beyond, in terms of health reasons, she's beyond that. You give Justice Sandra Day O'Connor some credit when she'd been down there for a number of years, and then her husband fell ill. She just stepped down from the court. But Ginsburg won't do that, and she, I think her health could deteriorate pretty rapidly. So I think part of these rumors may be a kind of attempt somehow to counterbalance the possibility that the couple of the key liberals on the court are on the edge. The one I see that they keep bringing up is Clarence Thomas. The idea that somehow he's going to step down. Now, knowing Clarence Thomas as I do, I don't see that happening. I think he's doing what he got on the court to do, and he is now the most senior member of the court and has some influence there. And so the idea that somehow he's going to, I don't think that's going to happen. But you see him floating these ideas, I guess somehow weaken any attempt to put a few more conservatives on the court.
Dr. Nick Waddy was on our show Wednesday. He says that some of these conservative talk show hosts are wrong to give Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts a hard time because of recent rulings. Dr. Waddy says, hey, court people like John Roberts say nice things, so he'll do what you want. What do you think, Dr. Bob?
Yeah, no, I think that Roberts, in a number of ways, is a solid conservative, and on the other hand, he's leading a group of people who are some are conservative, some are liberal, and I think, in particular on the abortion issue, he's staying with the basic principles that were spelled out in Roe v. Wade, and then later in the case that followed it. I cannot call it up right now. It's a Pennsylvania case where the court limited abortion rights and abortion activity, but maintained your basic right to an abortion. And I think Roberts' view is that simply because you change majority on the court, you can't suddenly turn around and overturn let's see, Roe v. Wade was 73, somewhere around there. So what's that? 40, almost 50 years of precedent, simply because you got a few different people on the court. The court has consistently narrowed the rights to an abortion, and I think Roberts has generally supported that. So I think in that sense, he's following a basic kind of judicial procedure and stance. And he here and there on other cases as well, he will go with the what we might call a liberal group if he feels there's some precedent or basic legal principle involved there.
Down to the last 30 seconds, Dr. Bob. Brett Kavanaugh, do we like him? Tell me what to think there.
Kavanaugh's fine. Kavanaugh and Gorsuch. No, they're both bright people and good people.
Okay, should I vote for them in the next election, Dr. Bob?
Well, you don't get a chance to do that, Brian. Where'd you learn your American politics anyway? So
we are out of time. It's always good talking with you.
Yeah, you go. Yeah, okay. We still on the air here or what?
Yeah.